Ben Kemper.
Why, thank you. All right, evening all. Lions. Some people have more dramatic coming-of-age rituals and moments than others. For instance, the Maasai of Africa, when they have a boy who is to become a man, they send him out into the bush, and he has to find, stalk, and kill a lion by himself. Now, I never had to do that. When I was just a small child, a storyteller, a professional storyteller, came to my school. Her name was Joy Steiner, and she had a way with words that was so incredible that I was captivated by her in an instant. And when she departed, I resolved that I would learn everything I could about this woman and what she did. So I began stalking her. As a 6-year-old, I stalked her from event to event to event, and eventually, she didn't file a restraining order, but took me under her wing and taught me the art of elocution, how to stand up and talk before people. And I followed in her footsteps, and this is strange because I am not a performer at all. I don't like making a really big show of myself. I don't like conflict, and to put it bluntly, I do not get along well with little kids. And if you are a performer, you have to make a big show of yourself, and you have to deal with hard questions and hard situations, and generally, your target audience is rarely above the age of 7. But I had made a promise to myself and to Joy Steiner, and this is what I did. For years, I told stories. And then came the opportunity of a lifetime. Through a strange turn of events, I was contacted by another featured storyteller some time ago, Al Blank, who invited me to come and tell stories to the students of SCIS. Shanghai Community International Schools in Shanghai, China. Go figure. And I thought, wow, what an opportunity. Let's see, you have 3 different campuses, students from all over the world, 15 performances from kindergarten up to junior high and high school. What's not to like? This is a dream for an upcoming artiste. But it's terrifying. I don't know how good these kids' English is. I don't know whether they'll understand American idioms. What if I make a big fool of myself in general? And so, I was off to China to fight not 1, not 2, but 3 lions. And the first of these lions ambushed me. Right on my first day of storytelling, in the first day of school, in the last performance of the day. I was up on a stage not much bigger than this one, right in the cafeteria, pushed up against the wall of the kitchen. The students were arrayed in about 20 chairs in a semicircle beyond me, and I was telling the story of Stromboli Baboli, the Italian ogre. And everything was going fine. They understood me perfectly. They laughed in all the right places. No one threw garbage, which is always a plus. And then, about 3/4 of the way through the story, the dishwasher came on behind me. And it was a big industrial dishwasher. So I had to speak louder, make a bit more of a show of myself, accentuate my actions so that everyone would see what I was doing. Which was uncomfortable, but fine. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a door open in the kitchen wall and a service worker walk out with a tray filled with dirty dishes. And she didn't go all the way around the chairs to get wherever she was going. No, she went right between the space of the stage and the chairs. And I didn't want to call her out. It was her job. She was getting paid for this, and so I just ignored her. But the door opened another time. And a service worker came out, and she didn't cross in between. She got up on the stage and walked right behind me, carrying on. And another one did just that. And another. And another. By this point, I was losing patience. So finally, I decided to go all out, and as another one mounted the stage, I turned, and here was Stromboli Boboli! And I shouted at her. And she jumped, and the trays rattled in her hands, and she turned around, and she walked all the way around the chairs and to the other side. And the three others that followed that exact pattern. And I had the day and the stage all to myself. And perhaps it was a little rude, and it was a little showy, but I felt great. First lion. Done with. The second came at me the second day, at the second school, for the question and answer period of the high schoolers. Now, if any of you have had to speak to high schoolers, and I know I've had just coming out of high school, they're a difficult audience. They lean back and they nod and they fold their arms, but the day had gone well. They had liked the story. Some of them were sitting forward, just like you lovely people are now. And I was answering questions about what it is to speak in elocution and so forth, except that there was a problem. There was a big guy sitting down, front and center. He still had his arms crossed. He was still looking at me and sneering slightly. He had glasses and bright red hair, and he raised his hand to ask a question. And when he spoke, it was exactly like an SS officer in a Humphrey Bogart film. He raised his hand and said, "So, since storytelling is, to all intents and purposes, a dead art form, what do you intend to do when you grow up?" Well, I don't like conflict. But this man was calling me out on everything I had pinned my hopes and dreams on. And I wasn't going to let that stand. So I squared my feet, I looked him directly in the eye, and I raised my voice in the mighty battle cry of storytellers everywhere. Well, actually, in the United States, storytelling is experiencing something of a renaissance. There are regional festivals popping up all over the place, and people are becoming professional storytellers. And they can make quite good business, selling CDs and merchandise and going from schools to universities to festivals and making heaps of money. So actually, storytelling is, well, really quite alive and well. And I swear I saw him sink 2 inches in his chair. Second lion, down! The third one mauled me. It was the very last performance of the very last school, of the very last day in China, and it was the audience that I dreaded most. First graders. Now, I've never liked children, especially when I was a child. And whenever I go up to perform for them or to speak with them, I find myself getting really big and putting lots of gestures between myself and them so that I don't have to have any extraneous contact. And what happened next, I brought upon myself, because I was telling them a story, a very violent story about a giant that went around villages and knocked people on the head. Bang! With a hard Iroko club. And when the story was finished, there was a question and answer period, and one little boy raised his arm and he said, "Excuse me, can I give you something?" And I thought to myself, this is a strange turn of events, but why not? And he got up and he came forward and I leaned down. And he came up right next to my eardrum and he said, and bang went the Iroko club. And I was startled. And he didn't hit me, which was a blessing. But I was so startled that I overbalanced and fell right down on the floor. And seeing this most positive reaction, all the other first graders decided to join in. They got up and they swarmed me, beating me alive with imaginary clubs, shouting, and bang with the Iroko club, and bang with the Iroko club, and bang with the Iroko club. The teacher, of course, is off in the corner laughing his head off. As I lie there, bruised and bleeding, and finally, after they lose interest and go somewhere else, I unfold myself and I hear somebody else laughing. And imagine my surprise when it turned out to be me. Despite my shock and panic and terror, I'd actually being enjoyed being clobbered to death by first graders. It was part of a game, one that I hadn't experienced in a long time. And it was okay. And so I came back to Boise, and nothing much had changed. I was still a very timid storyteller, didn't much like kids, still didn't like to make a big show of myself, didn't like conflict. I was not a Maasai warrior. I'm likely never to be. In fact, it was not until a long time after that I learned that in addition to having go out and kill a lion, the young man must then submit himself for public circumcision. I decided to pass on that honor. I figured I had 3 lions to my name, and I had a story to tell that was all my own, and that was good enough for me. Thanks.